everybody, welcome back to Pushing Pixels. This is part 4 of our sports logo, and now we're going to start having some fun. Why does that keep coming on? I don't understand why that keeps popping up. Okay, now we left off here, but we're going to start doing some of these fun elements, these gradients and shadows and stuff, and believe it or not, it is really simple. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the blue frame layer, okay? So if we double click on the gray field on the blue frame there, we're going to get our styles box, and the first thing we are going to do is we are going to drop a shadow. So turn on the shadow box there, right? And you can already see I'm getting a pretty fun drop shadow. You can see what's happening to your shadow there. And I'm going to make the size a little bit big, maybe. Actually, I'm going to take the size down quite a bit. Let's leave it at 7. And I'm going to reach inside the document here. You can reach inside and move it around. And I am going to sort of center it a bit. And you could also see it's dropping a shadow down on our frame down there. So I'm going to push that a little bit. And maybe I should invert this so you can see what's happening. Let's try that. That'll be a little bit easier for you to follow. Double click back on the frame. Okay, now I got my shadow happening here. And I'm going to try to keep it fairly centered. Angle, let's leave our angle to 90. How about that? That'll work. Angle to 90. And I'm going to keep holding my shift key and dragging down a little bit. And you can see I'm getting some interesting effects already. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm at multiply 60. That's not too bad. 90 is my angle. My distance is whatever you want it to be, 52, and my size is 7. All right. Let's also go now to gradient overlay, and we're not going to use that one. We're going to use just a standard old black and white gradient, and you can kind of already see what it's doing. It's making this sort of white streak happen across my element. Top right to bottom, except I'm going to change the overlay to linear, what did I call that? Linear light. And when I do that, watch what happens. We get that cool little effect right there, and that is not too bad. I'm going to keep that. That's perfect. And then I'm going to click OK. So you got your gradient, and you got your drop shadow, and that's pretty much all we're going to do. Click OK. All right, so on our blue frame, we have our effects. Now, the cool thing about this is we can steal those effects and put them on other layers. So we are going to steal those effects and put them on our red field. Hold your Alt key down and grab that little effects icon right there and drag it down to your red field layer. And we're going to get an effect there that's pretty wild, except it's too much. So let's double click on the layer again to bring up our layers dialog. And let's change that gradient overlay from linear light to overlay. It'll soften it up quite a bit. In fact, now you can almost not even see it. It's there. You can reach in. I'm going to turn the opacity 100%. And I'm going to set my scale to something kind of small. I want it to jump out a little bit. What if we just set it to 100? No, let's not do that. Oops, got to get back into there. Sorry about that. Gradient overlay, overlay, and scale, opacity to 100. That's not too bad. Maybe put it right sort of there. All right, let's go with that for now. I like that. That looks pretty good. And if you, let me turn off my, you can see we have the drop shadow. We have to repair that, so let's do that. Click on drop shadow down there. And I'm going to hold my shift key and drag down again. You know what? Not drop shadow. Inner shadow. Sorry about that. There we go. Inner shadow. Totally wrong about that. Okay, so we got our inner shadow now, and that's not too bad. 71 feels a little hot. Maybe 60? Let's do that. All right, so there we go. We have an inner shadow now and our gradient. There's our inner shadow. and our gradient. We're still working on the red field layer. Let's click OK. Now let's grab the effects off of the red layer. Again, we're going to grab that little effects icon, and we're going to drag that down to the shield. And I'm going to turn my blue frame on. You can start to see this whole thing stacking up. Now, even though the shield is in the background, it actually needs to act as though it's in the foreground. So in order to do that, we need to tell the blue frame up here to have an inner shadow, and it will trick your eye into thinking that the frame is dropping the shadow. So go back to the blue frame, double click, and we're going to do an inner shadow, and that's way too much. I'm going to push it up just a little bit. Right about there. That's not too bad, right? Alright, so now we have a lot of things happening here. The inner shadow is doing quite a bit of, or that blue frame is doing quite a bit of work. It's dropping a shadow here, it's dropping an inner shadow here to make your eye believe the gray is there. So that's pretty good. Inner shadow, gradient, and drop shadow. I'm not sure we really want that drop shadow. Yeah, let's keep it. What the heck? Inner shadow, gradient. There we go. I turn that gradient up just a little bit, though. That's pretty. Okay. It's supposed to be linear light? That's why. Okay. Great. Let's go back to the gray shield down here, our frame, our exterior frame. And if we double click that, again, we're going to get this. And on gradient overlay, we're going to use something a little bit different. I gave my class a bunch of metal gradients, and I'm just going to find one that seems to work. Maybe let's try that one. That one's not too bad. You can kind of see it's already filling in there a little bit. Kind of a bit much, though. I'm not sure I'm in love with any of these. How about these guys down here? Yeah, let's use those. Oops. Back to gradient overlay. And you can see what it looks like right there. I'm going to scale it up quite a bit so we see the gradients all the way around the perimeter there. And that's kind of cool. So now we got a nice little chrome effect happening. And the drop shadow is a little, or the inner shadow, I'm sorry. It's not too crazy. We probably don't even technically need that. Alright, so it looks pretty good there. Nice. And everything seems to be popping a bit. Alright, that's kind of how you build that element. Last thing we're going to do is we are going to add the text element to this and finish the whole thing up. So I will see you in part 4.